Hi everyone, welcome to The Superficial Spirit, where we explore how pop culture affects our spiritual experiences. My name is Peter Breeze. Join me while we ask a very important question. What the hell did pop culture do to me? Welcome to The Superficial Spirit. Thanks so much for joining me today. If you've been listening to the show, you know that I have spoken about concepts from modern spirituality, like the law of attraction and manifesting. And these concepts were so big in my life for a long, long time. When I was growing up, I had really big dreams. I was obsessed with pop culture. I was obsessed with celebrities. I really, truly believed that I was going to become one. And when I got into nightlife and I started seeing the ways my intentions and my ideas could come to life, it was incredibly validating. And when you use an environment like nightlife as a way to sort of push the boundaries of self-expression and self-actualization, it's a really amazing experience because you can imagine yourself as an over-the-top version of who you actually are, and you can bring it to a community that's ready to accept that type of person. You know, makeup and costumes and drugs and drinking, all of those things are welcomed with open arms. And it was such a great way for me to explore and experiment with who I am and what I wanted to say. When my life started to feel a little bit out of control because of that environment, I turned to modern spirituality and things like manifesting and the law of attraction to help ease the transition from crazy club kid to a more stable, peaceful, wholesome kind of life. The whole concept of being able to create a reality with your mind and your feelings was so intoxicating to me. And I read books like by Abraham Hicks, and I, obsessively read about the law of attraction and manifesting any type of material I could get my hands on that enforced this belief was extremely important to me. And because I had lived as a dreamer for so long, and I had seen proof that my ideas could come to life, and that if I believed in myself, things would happen, the law of attraction and manifesting spoke to me, and it really, really resonated in my soul, in my bones. I believed that this was real. And there was proof in my life that those things, that it is real. Things did happen. I did experience fame. I did experience success. I did see a lot of creative visions come to life. So I do think that there's value in it. However, there was a point in my life where I kind of took the brakes on a lot of action-based things and focused solely on the mental part of creating things in my life. So, when I started to become more peaceful and I started meditating and I stopped drinking and I stopped doing drugs and I really tried to cultivate a simpler kind of life, I thought that if I sat on my ass and meditated or visualized or set intentions or wrote letters to the universe, that was enough to get things that I wanted. And obviously it didn't work like that. You can't just sit on your ass and have the intention to become rich and a check will fall at your doorstep. It doesn't work like that. But that's the message I took from those books. It was like, set the intention, set a date, and wait for it to arrive. And that, paired with the fact that my boyfriend got really sick and had an autoimmune disease, there was a few things that just, I felt like I was doing all of the things that the book said, and my life was not blossoming in the way that it promised. And it took my faith away. It shattered me. I've had to rebuild my confidence and my faith over 5, 7, almost 10 years now, to get to a place where I'm comfortable exploring those topics again. I'm not as dependent on them, but I'm also in a place where I can take a more critical look at them because I'm not so dependent on and desperate for anything, really. The podcast is an exploration of the unique ways we can touch the divine and inspire spirituality in our lives. And the law of attraction and manifestation is such a popular concept for people. And today I'm talking with somebody who I actually met through the show. We connected over Instagram, and we have a lot of similar experiences when it comes to the law of attraction and manifesting. And I really want to get her perspective, because for so long, I was in an echo chamber of this modern spirituality where everybody kind of did the same thing. Nobody really questioned it. If you didn't get the thing that you wanted, then it was your fault. Your intentions weren't clear, or you still had healing to do, or, blah, 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 blah. And only now am I starting to connect with people who devoted themselves completely to these ideas, and then still woke up one day and were like, wait a second. I did everything I was supposed to do, and I still don't have the things that I wanted. Why? Is it something wrong with me? Is it the concept? Has modern spirituality been commercialized to a point where it's lost its true power, and they're missing key points about how to actually use your mind and how to actually harness energy to create any reality you choose? I don't know. I don't have the answer, but today we're going to explore it a little bit further. So let's bring Jessica on, all the way from California. Hello.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you? I'm so excited.
Good. I know. I'm so excited too. It's like we tried to do this a little while ago and it didn't work. Why didn't it work last time? What happened? I can't even
I think it's just
remember.
busy
Oh
with
my
work.
God. Yes. I was working from home and the workload was so light. And then I was like, oh, this is great. I'm working from home and I can do some podcast interviews. And then as soon as I started setting them up, it's like suddenly the world wanted me to work again. So I'm happy that we found some time today, because oh my
Me
God,
too.
you're the first friend that I've met through the podcast.
I know. So I was listening to one of your latest podcasts. I'm like, oh, he's talking about me, because you were saying how like you met our friend. I'm like, that's me, guys. I'm like, I think he's talking
Totally.
about me.
I totally was
Yeah.
talking about you. It's been so great. I mean, it's one of those things you don't really think about when you start a podcast. Like I wasn't doing it to meet people. I just was bored in quarantine and wanted to find a way to explore pop culture and spirituality. But when I did the Conspirituality podcast, that's when you and I connected. And that was a really popular episode for me. People were like, I felt like they were ravenous for that type of conversation.
Yeah.
They were so excited to hear a critical look at, manifestation, the law of attraction, Hay House, Abraham Hicks. And that's how you and I started talking.
Yeah. I am becoming like a super fan of Matthew, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I need to listen to this. But I started messaging you like with the first 9 minutes in, when you were just talking about your journey. And I'm like, who is this guy? Like, me too. Because you mentioned that we're the same age. And I'm like, all right, this is so interesting that we're both coming upon these revelations about, what spirituality or what new age things worked for us or didn't work for us. I'm like, wait, there's someone else like me out there that's going through this right now, same time. So yeah, I was so excited.
Yeah, when Evan and I first sort of the rose-colored glasses started to come off years ago, I didn't really have anybody in my life to talk to openly about, I don't think this is real. Like especially when he got sick and we had spent so much time reading about how whatever comes into your life, you create. And so that was the first like, oh God, like what did we do wrong? And obviously
Yeah.
when you're looking at somebody so sick, there's nothing that you did to create that, but it is this inner turmoil of like, well, I do believe in the law of attraction and manifesting and the power of our mind and energy and all that. But I also cannot look at the person I love most in the world and be like, well, what did you do to deserve this? Like
Right. And I feel like I've been almost getting depressed, in the past, who even knows, like 6 years, 10 years, because, it's all in my hands and I'm not doing something right because I don't have all the things I wanted 15 years ago. And I'm just so bad at manifesting. I'm so bad at this life. And my God, like it really put me in, a depressed state. And I would get really, really upset almost every night because I'm just failing at life. Um, and so like, yeah, I feel like I'm just now in the middle of pulling myself out of these new age spiritual beliefs that aren't really working for me. And I still have to really sit with myself with that too. Like I haven't really just sat down to like, what do I believe? I'm just again, I kind of liken it to, and I have no idea, this is much more severe when people leave a cult, but I feel like I'm stepping out of like how I almost brainwashed myself through just like reading a lot of spiritual books and going down the YouTube, rabbit holes. And I was believing everything because I guess people have to believe in something. So,
Yeah, I do think that, yeah, people do have to believe in something, especially when life gets hard. I think faith and spirituality can fill that void that we all feel. I think it's part of the human experience, is like that existential dread, like, oh God, is there nothing else? And the reason
yes.
why manifesting and the law of attraction was, and like crystals, all of it resonated so much with me, is because I was a dreamer my whole life. And I lived my life on the belief that if you wanted something bad enough and if you worked hard enough, it would happen. And even
Hmm.
though in my teens and in my early 20s, I wasn't aware of the law of attraction or manifesting, when I did get introduced to the ideas, I was like, oh, this is what I've been doing my whole life. This is 100% the truth. Because I did
Yeah.
see situations where I set an intention and I moved towards it, and opportunities presented themselves. So
Hmm.
I didn't question anything. It wasn't until like later in my 20s when, I had started a few businesses and, without any real planning. The first time I read Abraham Hicks, I quit my job. I quit my fucking job because I was like, I don't need the stability of a day job. I can just live off my faith and money will come. And it was sort of, I kept making decisions like that over and over and over again. And then I was broke. My confidence was gone because I had no money. And I had left the club scene. So everything that I used to use to validate myself wasn't there anymore. And I was like, what the fuck? It was
Hmm.
really, really hard. What's your story with, like, how did you find manifesting, and what was the unraveling process for you? Like, what drew you to it in the first place, and how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, I think there was just like a point in my teens, like 16, 17, where, and I don't know what happened, but I was just like, what happens when you die? Like, kind of like fearing death. And I grew up Roman Catholic. So I guess that just didn't do it for me. And I was like, well, what's the next thing? And then there was like Sylvia Brown on the Montel Williams show. And I'm like, oh my
Oh
gosh, like
yeah.
I wish I had that gift. And I don't want to blame my parents or anything, but I wish someone was like, I don't know if that shit's real. And I was just into it and people encouraged it. And I read all her books and I tried to look within and like, this feels right. Like what she was saying about reincarnation and a lot of just like new age spiritual stuff, it felt right. So, and it
Yeah.
made me feel better. So I went with it. And then came, I guess The Secret, which I wasn't like really into. Like I watched it, but that maybe led me to Abraham Hicks. So I bought all those books. I'm like, how do I do this? Because yeah, you're like becoming, an adult in your early 20s. It's like, how do I make a life I want? Here's the manual. So, like let me do all the steps. And now I'm just like finally like late, like mid late 30s, like, oh my gosh, like none, like, I don't know, just wasn't working. But yeah, like through that, people also told me, like, I started going to intuitives and psychics and psychic classes. And people were telling me, you can do this too. Like, wait, I can be a psychic channeler? Okay. And that, like, didn't really, it did feel like, are you sure? Like, I feel like it's just like a gift you have. That you can directly talk to spirits like Sylvia Brown or like whoever else, Sean Edwards, that you can directly talk to these spirits and just like something you have as a gift. But then people kept encouraging me that I could do this too. And that led me of like years of going to like intuitive psychic courses, trying to do it, trying to be a channeler, psychics telling me I can, I'll be a channeler one day. So I just kept pressing on and I did all the Reiki courses because someone said that will connect you more to
Oh my
spirit.
God.
So I was like, let me do all the Reiki courses. And I tried to set up shop doing Reiki too. And, I do believe, like, I don't want to say like everything's BS. And I wrote
Yeah.
in one of my blogs too that I don't want to come off as like bitter, or people might say, oh, she's bitter because she didn't make it. She's not a famous like Reiki person. She doesn't have 10,000 followers doing Reiki. Um, I genuinely started to feel like something's not right. Like, yes, there's energy out there. Reiki can possibly help some people. It could possibly be placebo, but I wasn't feeling right. And I'm like, I'm just a believer, like not lying and not doing things that could possibly harm people. So that's why I had to stop myself. Because I don't want to like give false hope. Not that people can
Yes.
be harmed
Yes.
by Reiki. You cannot, it's very harmless. But like the false hope is something that now worries me after listening to a lot of skeptical podcasts too. I listened to one in
Yeah.
particular, and that's really helping me like drag me out of this bubble of new age. Like, oh, like these things
Yeah.
could harm people.
Yeah, I think that that is a really important line. And that's a conversation I've been having a lot in my personal life right now is, healthy consumption of even conspiracy theories. I used to be obsessed with alien conspiracy theories, and I would go on YouTube and I would like talk to my boyfriend about it. And I was like, oh my God, there's aliens in the ocean and there's UFOs. And like, I loved it, but it wasn't hurting anybody. I was just like, the world is run by reptilians. Isn't that fucking cool? The queen is a reptile. Oh my God. Justin
Right? I was
Bieber is
believing all that
Beyonce. Like,
too.
yeah.
Yes.
Yes, but and it was the same. I felt I got the same satisfaction of when I watched The Housewives now. It was a kind of entertainment, but it wasn't hurting anybody. When you move into the place where people are looking for serious help and direction in their life, and you're telling them, all you need to do is take this course or read this book or buy this crystal, then that's when I think people like you and I start to emerge and be like, wait, that wasn't right, because it wasn't the right path for whatever reason. And I remember going to psychic fairs and walking through the aisles and being like, all of these people want love, money, fame, and none of them have it. But they're all charging money to strangers to tell them how to get it. But you're getting advice from people who maybe have the same amount of money as you, but they're giving you insight on how to become a millionaire, or they're single, but they're telling you how to
Exactly.
fall in love. And I remember
Mhm.
getting those feelings about like, I don't know if you're the best person to talk to about this, but my faith was bigger. I wanted to believe more than I wanted to be critical. And
Yes. Yes.
yeah,
And I do think a lot of like me going to psychics and learning about like possible future things has definitely harmed me, especially in the way of like relationships and love, possibly. So, of course, that's what everyone wants to know. So, I would go to a psychic and, be nervous to ask that question. Am I going to meet the one, and they're like, oh, I see, you're going to meet somebody in August. So, until August, if there's like 6 months until August, I'm just like, blowing off guys. I'm like, well, you're not the one. He's coming in August. And then that guy
right.
that I find in August would be a total jerk. But you know what? I ignore all the red flags because the psychic
It's
told me
August.
that it's probably him. So, and then, I mean, of course, like I still have like friends that are psychics and I think they're totally great. And people might say, that's one possible journey. Psychics
Yeah.
happen to like different dimensional fields, and that's
Yeah.
one that they're seeing. I think that's just like all excuses. I think talking to a psychic about anything future related, which I've done for the past 10 years, is
Yeah.
very dangerous and I don't recommend it now. It's one thing to ask about like a past loved one if that makes you feel better, but for future things, it's kind of messed up my life.
Yeah. I think I know people personally, and I have definitely been at points in my life where I needed the validation from cards or from psychics. Um, and I think if you can if you can take a sort of tongue-in-cheek approach to psychics and go purely for the entertainment value.
Right.
And yeah, sure, maybe you're single and you want to fall in love and you ask a psychic, but you're not really putting too much, I don't know. You take it for what it is and then you leave and you
Right.
forget and like whatever. Then it can be fun. And then at that point it's like, is it hurting anyone? But I feel like, when does it become dangerous? Because for me, it was like the economic downfall of not putting in the work and not creating stability for my life. That was the rude awakening for me. It didn't affect my creativity or necessarily my belief in myself, but I realized it was not enough to just want something and to write it down.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it just wasn't. And it feels so silly even now talking about that, but I really did believe that all I had to do was want it, and the universe would provide me the opportunity to become rich. And
Same.
it just didn't work like that. I have great ideas. I'm a smart person, but I was putting too much value in something that is maybe a very small piece of a really much bigger picture. Like, yes, intention matters. You have to be
Yes.
specific and goal and set your goals and move towards them. But this modern spirituality, these concepts kind of make it okay to be lazy and passive.
Yes.
And that's when I think people run into issues, because they're like, well, I was waiting for August, or I was waiting for that sign or this sign, and then it never comes. And 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years later, you're like, holy shit, it's been a decade and I've been sitting and waiting for
Yep.
something.
And then, yeah, speaking of signs, like I'm either waiting for signs or thinking everything is a sign. So I'm always just looking around. I'm like, oh, I've never seen that purple flower before. What does a
What
purple
does it
flower
mean?
mean? What does it mean? Oh my God, it means I'm gonna meet somebody in August. And I was almost driving myself bonkers, because again, reading all these like new age spiritual whatever, it was probably in an Abraham Hicks or Sylvia Brown book, something like that, where it's just like, God gives you signs in the universe. So I'm like, okay, but everything's a sign then. So yeah, I've just been like driving myself crazy my whole life.
Yeah, the signs thing, numerology, like I remember taking pictures of license plates all the time, the
Yeah.
totals of bills, like everything to
Yes.
me was a sign. Like Googling, what does 7831 mean? Because that's how much my dinner costs. And it's like,
Yes.
oh, the power of 7, the power of 8, the power of 3.
Don't play the
And
lottery.
exactly. And I don't like, there is, and this is, you and I have talked about this offline, like how I'm not completely denouncing that I do think that there's something in these ideas. I do think our minds affect reality. I do think energy influences the world and the way that we experience life. But I don't know where the danger lies. Like, somebody listening to this might be like, okay, well, I mean, if you're gonna try and build businesses based on energy purely, and you writing letters to the universe, that's your own fault. You're stupid. And to be fair, yes, that is a silly approach. However, what responsibility do these publishers and these speakers have in really letting people know, like, the people who are rich off the law of attraction have written books and have sold out auditoriums, and it's a business model, right? They're selling an idea, and there's no accountability on their part. There's no like sticker on the front of the book, like, please take this with a grain of salt. You can't heal cancer with your mind. $1 million will not show up at your house just because you listen to a Britney Spears song and you feel like a millionaire for 3.5 minutes. But this is the message that they're giving people. And now there is an awakening. I mean, maybe bad choice of words, but maybe it's the podcast that is opening me up to this conversation more. But I do feel like more and more the people that I knew who were really committed to that community are starting to come out and be like, yeah, it wasn't what I thought it was.
Yeah. So I think that's really big for me too, like listening to that Conspirituality podcast. It's, a big part of what I'm going through right now. It's, seeing all these channelers channeling beings of light, saying that like a certain person is the savior who seems like a very bad person. I'm like, oh, wow. Now I really don't believe in people who channel. But yeah, it's just like, I feel like I was just naive and believing all the things. And I was just the other day watching the HBO on whatchamacallit, Heaven's Gate. Sorry about some notes.
Oh, I haven't watched that. Is it new?
I think so. So the very first episode talks about like, their initial beliefs. And I'm just like, oh my God, like those are things I believed in just a few months ago, just earlier this year, because it's kind of relevant to how some people believe we're moving into 5D. And, you know, our souls are actually like aliens, you know, we're all from like another starseed planet, and we've
Yeah.
incarnated at this time as light workers. And, you know, a spaceship will come and take the people that are bad off the earth. We'll all move into 5D. And so I've been like, you know, watching YouTube channels about that, you know, just earlier this year, like late last year. And then I'm hearing them talk about what they believe in Heaven's Gate. And it's the same thing. Like, we're alien beings and we're going to go up on a spaceship. And I'm like, oh my God, like all this stuff, it's just like makes me wonder too, like all this new age information is just regurgitated. It's a little bit from the Bible, a little bit from Buddhism, a little bit from everywhere. No one has their own authentic idea, and everything seems so like super culty. And like again, I was just like, I am such an idiot for like entertaining that could be a possibility.
Yeah.
Which
The charismatic leader thing is an interesting point, that, you know, we are drawn to people who feel right. Like Matthew says this in Conspirituality. You know, they have a certain glow and they talk with conviction. It's the same as fucking politicians and celebrities. Like, there are some people who are easy to listen to because they're engaging and charming, and that's all we really need. We don't look any further. And when it comes to modern spirituality, cults, you know, these people they claim that they're a messenger of the divine, and people who are desperate for hope and direction follow them blindly. And then you get into that area of, you know, dangerous cults. This is why is modern spirituality a cult, because people so openly dive into these ideas, and it's not really based on facts, and people make silly decisions based on these ideas, and there is no real repercussions. I mean, I guess it's like that with religion too. I mean, if you choose to live a certain way, like there are religions who will turn down medicine because I don't know if it's Jehovah's Witness, which one it is, you know, Western medicine, where you can't treat it because it's God's will. That's a choice. It's the same way if Evan would have chosen to stay on the natural approach and he died, that's a choice. Like, is it the person who wrote the book saying you can heal your body with your mind? Is it their fault? I don't know. Like, I guess my question now is, where does the problem arise? When does it become an issue? I don't know. I don't know when it did for me. Like I said, not having money was an issue for me. And that's, I was like, okay, I need to bust my ass and not be broke anymore. And I fixed that. But I guess it's different for everybody. Everybody has a different threshold for how far they're willing to go down that rabbit hole.
Yeah. And I mean, speaking of disclaimers, like you were mentioning before, it's like there are disclaimers on like psychic sites and stuff. It says for entertainment purposes only, you know? And but it doesn't even matter, because like people like me and probably you at some point were just like, oh yeah, like they have to say that. I know this shit's real. So just, disclaimers like almost don't even matter, because they are putting that on like certain, again, psychic websites and stuff.
Was there a turning point for you, like when you were seriously like, I need something isn't right? Like, did something happen where this bubble burst for you and you started to question everything?
Yeah, I think it was a series of things within like probably 10 months of each other, where very spiritual things, I saw like a little lie in it, and that lie made me really, really, I don't know, question everything. So I can't talk about too much, but I went to a spiritual retreat and it just seemed like the owner was lying, and I felt like people were in danger of that. And that spun off into connecting with some people in Orange County. Some other guys were making a small spiritual center retreat. And then, you know, I was talking to them a bit, and it seemed like they were kind of like being shady and lying. And I'm like, okay, like, never mind. And then I was in like spiritual circles, and I had friends, and my one friend was channeling spirits, and like, you know, we went over her house just to have fun and like practice channeling and stuff. And then I caught her in a lie. She told me that she did a magic spell to get more followers on Instagram, after I questioned her getting 5,000 followers in a couple of weeks and they were all bots. I was like, hey, like, are you buying followers? You know, I think that Instagram might kick you off for that. Like, be careful doing that. And she's like, oh no, like, I just did a magic spell. And she said I was this awful person for accusing her. And those events were happening like, you know, just every month. where I was just seeing like people lie who were claiming to be like these great spiritual people. So it just really disheartened me because I was, again, naively just like all in, really trusting people. You trust when you go to a resort in a different country that they're going to tell you the truth about, plant medicine they're giving you. You trust, that someone's just going to tell you the truth. But I also think a lot of people are lying to themselves too.
This is a good point.
Yeah, I listened to another podcast that interviewed a medical medium, and she, said all over the place that she used to be a nurse, and the person said, I can't find any record that you were ever a registered nurse anywhere. And
Oh
she's
my
just
God.
stuttering, and then it's just this amazing podcast. And former me would have really believed in this medical medium. She seemed great, and then it's just like that one little lie. So again, it was just like a few things coming upon a skeptic podcast, listening to things like that. And then I'm like, oh man. And just, those really close relationships, I lost my whole spiritual friend bubble because I'm like, I can't be friends with any of you. Like, this is so weird. So yeah, it's just kind of a combination of things within a short period of time.
Yeah. That's a lot. I mean, it's really hard to start seeing those lies. And I think you brought up a good point about people believing what they're doing and lying to themselves.
Yeah.
And I had some close relationships too, where I was like, you're saying love and light, but you are like venom. You are a toxic energy, because it's so, this cycle of healing and trauma and honoring your feelings at all costs and giving people space, and this sort of cycle of using your spiritual journey and ascension as a reason to be an asshole or to lie or to, I guess, like, screw people out of money if you're doing a resort. I mean, I think if you go back far enough, it is based on something beautiful, like the message of using your mind to create reality and living from a place of love and compassion is important. And I think that it does mean something. But with commercialization, it opens the door for people to take advantage of vulnerable people who really need support and love and guidance.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and I left out, I also did a starseed class. So through my journey of wanting to be authentic and find out who I am, I think the new age jargon kind of like tells you like, you're the soul in a body, you're from another planet. Find out who you are.
I used to love that
shit. Yeah, it's like, find out what planet you're from and you'll know your soul and you'll find out who you really are, right? So I was all into that, and I got some consultations by this one woman, and then she was setting up a 6-month course so that I too can then help other people find out what starseed planet they were from. So, I was very like, are you sure I can do this? Like, I don't think I'm a psychic. And she's like, no, like, I'm not psychic either. Like, you can do this, you can help other people and give them their starseed reading. So I went through the course, and right away, it was just very interesting. I don't know if you've ever used a pendulum. We were using pendulums to just kind of see like what planet people were from and all this. And everyone in the class got it wrong. Like, we would test out like Michael Jackson or just like famous people. Everyone got different answers. So it's the same thing with channelers. If you're all channeling like the Federation of like light from Pluto's third moon, how come they're not all saying the same thing? So if we're all like channeling something, how come we're all not getting like the same planet Michael Jackson's from? I feel like I'm sounding crazy right now. So anyway, it was really interesting that like, I was like, red flag. Why are we all getting different answers? But the teacher's answer is correct about where Michael Jackson's planet from, whatever. So that was just like a major red flag. And then she's like, once you find out what planet your client's from, just read off this little section about it to them. And then if they want to know more, since it's so much information, just tell them to buy my book. And then I was like, oh. So I'm not going to tell people, I'm not going to sell your book for you, basically. And I'm not going to tell people information that's probably wrong. It was kind of feeling like possibly how an astrology reading goes. Like, okay, if you're a Capricorn, I can just read off this list of shit to you if you're like all your stars are aligned here. It was kind of like that. So if I'm scrying that you're in this planet, I'll just read off this list to you. So it was just not very personal. Again, huge red flags. And I was like, something I say to someone might completely change their minds, change their course of action in life, because I told them that they're from Sirius or something and they need to, do this sort of career. And I'm like, whoa, that's a lot. So that was also like red flags from that class that I just took in 2019 was like, something's just like not right here. So yeah, just about like disclaimers and all of that. Like, I was like, wow, like this woman, I think she has a good heart. She's very, very sweet, but this can't be real. Like, she was like naming planets I've never heard of before.
Well, and how does she know?
New
How does she
Age.
know these planets? Does she have a telescope in her house?
Exactly. And she didn't channel this information. She learned it from someone else. I couldn't find any information on those people. So it's all, I'm just like, oh my God, this is all made up.
Yeah, I know. My biggest inner conflict is now, and it's a big conversation because of COVID. People following their intuition about things over science, right? And I meditate every morning because it helps with my anxiety and it keeps my head clear. And I'm just a overall happier, better person when I do that. Whereas when I started meditating, I was trying to visualize a certain kind of future. So like I have taken some positive things from that part of my life. And the planet thing, I mean, oh my God, I had a friend too who did she did like up to 300 past lives. Like you would get a list of like 300, like you were a cat human hybrid and you were a dolphin human hybrid. And
oh my God.
I remember like being so like, this is so amazing. Like, this is so cool. And I loved it so much. I mean, I don't know if that was necessarily harmful, but it's so hard to, once you open that door of psychics and mediums and channeling, how do you consume it responsibly, I guess is a good way to put it, right? Like I have also seen psychics who I'd never met before who knew information about my dad who had passed. And I found that really profound. I mean, it is really cool to sit in front of a stranger and them say, oh my God, somebody's coming through. His name is Peter. And I'm like, that's my dad's name. And they're like, it's your dad. That is really powerful. And it can have really great healing properties. And you're really trusting the people to be like, I'm going for healing. And I don't know, I've seen the desperation. I also was a tarot reader, and I've had experiences where people told me I was channeling their grandma, and then their whole family is sitting in front of me crying. And I'm like, I don't want to say I'm not channeling, but I'm just reading cards. Like, and so I've also been in the position where people are looking to me and telling me and endowing these powers into me because of what I'm saying. And just because I'm sitting across from them reading tarot cards, like it's an interesting community and an interesting way to, especially to build a business, because is there any regulations? Most businesses in North America have regulations to make sure that you're not taking advantage of people. But does the spiritual community? I don't think so.
Right. And I think the person receiving the message on the other side, I feel like this, like I want to find validation for the reader. So if you're telling me like, oh, I'm sensing a smoker in your life and I don't know a smoker, I'd be like, well, Peter, like, okay, I guess there might have been one, like maybe when I was like 6 months old, like I'll search for an answer because I'm trusting you and I want to give you validation with humans sitting in front of me. So if that keeps going in a cycle of the people, the consumers just like trying to validate the readers too, like the reader's getting super pumped. I'm getting things right. I'm going to blow up my business, so it's just like this vicious cycle, possibly.
Yeah. How do you feel about spirituality now? Like, where are you at with, cultivating a more positive and enriching experience? Like, without the stuff that hurt you? Have you found a happy medium where you're able to engage in that, or have you left it all behind completely? Where are you at now?
I'm still totally working through everything. I need to sit with myself. I definitely believe something else is out there. Sure, yeah, I believe in aliens, other life forms somewhere in the universe. I believe in energy. I still believe in, reincarnation, that we have spirits and souls, and there's most likely like some higher energy. But that's all I'm at right now.
Yeah.
And I'm getting sad, like some nights I'm just like, I am losing a lot of faith in a lot of things, and especially in like people and humanity, just seeing a lot of people pretending to be spiritual. And yeah, I don't have like a set answer for you. And you could hit me up in 8 months and I might be like, nope, never mind. Psychics are like real. Like I'm just moving through things and
Yeah.
seeing what comes up for me. But I like that I'm becoming more skeptical, and
It's healthy. It's
yeah,
good to question anything that you are so passionate about. And
yeah,
the losing faith thing, I was at that point probably, oh God, 5 years ago, maybe, is when I was really, really, my life got really dark. I mean, I just felt like completely lied to. I was mad at my mom also. Like, why did you tell me I could be a star? Why did you tell me all my dreams could come true? I was mad at the books. I was mad at myself. It was
yeah,
just
that's where I
really
am.
low. Everything was low. And all I can say is that I did completely abandon everything for a while. Like apart from meditation, like I meditated because it helped me. But I left it all. Like when Evan got sick, we kind of moved to Toronto and all that stuff was gone. Crystals, garbage, books, garbage. It was just,
Oh
and,
yeah.
and I had a lot of anger and judgment about the people in
Yeah.
my life who still, like, I remember getting invited to a Gabby Bernstein event and I was like,
No.
I'm not spending another fucking dollar on that bullshit. And my friend was like, okay. But
Yeah.
now that my life has stabilized, now that Evan is better, and it's not such a fresh wound, I am able to look inside and be like, okay, what do I need to feel good? Not what do I need from somebody else, but like meditate, I keep saying, because it brings me a sense of peace. And like, how can I be more compassionate to people? And what does it
Yes.
mean to live from a place of love? Because this is what the message that comes up over and over and over and over again. God is love. Love is powerful. And so I've been asking myself that for the past while. Well, what does it really mean if you're constantly choosing love and being at a place of unconditional love? And I think even asking the question brings awareness to your life, and you can start meeting things that fucking piss you off with a little bit more compassion, like bringing up the groceries. Oh my God. Like, things like that used to stress me out so much, but I'm
Yeah.
finding more and more, I'm just more calm. And that isn't because of psychics. That isn't because of the law of attraction. That's because I'm just asking myself, how can I make myself feel better? And things like love resonate with me. I am in love, so I know that that's real. Meditation makes me feel more calm. So how can I bring more of that into my life? And because I feel more healed, I guess, the law of attraction, I can talk about it more openly now, and it's not as desperate as I was, where I needed it so bad. But because I don't anymore, I can talk about it and I can be like, yeah, sure. Like I'm manifesting a fucking successful podcast, sure. But I'm also just working. I'm also just
Right.
recording episodes.
Yeah.
I'm also just meeting people like you and getting feedback and building something. So I do think that where you're at now is good, because you are going to eventually get to the other side of whatever it is, and you'll have more clarity. But man, this is the conversation that needs to happen more, is like losing your
Yeah.
faith is fucking hard, because it makes you feel like you're naked, wet, and freezing cold in a really dark,
Yeah.
scary world.
So I'm like, who am I now? Because I was, the kid in my family that was just into all that stuff. Jess is like, she likes the spiritual stuff. Okay. And I'm like, well, who am I without that? But I absolutely love everything you just said. Yeah, my wound is still a little fresh. Like I feel a little nauseous saying the word manifesting and light
Yeah,
worker.
totally.
Like, I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
please, like, again,
yeah.
it's like you don't manifest, well, I guess you could say manifest is the same as the word creating, but you're doing work. And when someone says the word manifest to me, it almost seems like it dropped out of the sky from God, you know? And
Yes,
it's like, no,
yes,
like that's
yes,
not going to happen.
yes.
Yeah, everything you just said was beautiful. And I think I'm like on that
You
path and
totally
that journey.
are. You know, it's a
Yeah.
healthy curiosity about your belief system. And I know people listen to this podcast are very much into manifesting and the law of attraction. And I would just say to anybody is like, you just have to be aware of the bigger picture and, you know, question anything that really speaks to you. If you're going to commit your life to anything, you should be like,
Yes.
okay, is this hurting me? Does this make sense? Like, am I making a really big life decision based on something that I don't know enough about? And
Right.
make sure you're including healthy conversations that are critical, because, you know, when I was in my early 20s and I was living in the clubs and everything was fast and chaotic, a lot of amazing things happened because I wasn't
Mhm.
so in my head about what manifesting meant and what the law of attraction was. And so I do think that there's people out there who are maybe a little bit more critical by default and are able to experience, like we talked about earlier, a throw it away approach where they can read the book and be like, oh yeah, that's like a fun idea. And maybe I'll apply it to some things, but it's not going to be the basis of their life where it was for you and I. And
Right.
I hope that people can find joy in it if that is something that speaks to them. And just remember, anybody who says to you they have all the answers, you should go in the opposite direction, because nobody fucking
Yes.
does.
Yeah.
Nobody does.
And yeah, I feel like I was just blindly following people and I wasn't. Like my whole thing now, like this whole year, is just like if I think I like someone, start Googling their name with the word fraud after it
Oh my God, yes.
and just see what comes up, you know? And I'm not saying that's right either. A couple of people's opinions that think someone's a fraud, but then just see how you feel.
Mhm.
Because I sent you the one article on Abraham Hicks, and that really blew my mind. And I only just read that recently, where you see their background as kind of being in like multi-level marketing for spiritual stuff. And then all of a sudden they come up with, you know, Abraham Hicks or Abraham. And it's like, oh, like, oh God. So again, that's just like one article. But yeah, it's just
I
like
love
things
your
like that.
blog. Yeah, I love that you are being proactive about where you're at right now, and you tell people about the blog that you have.
So it's just a really simple blog because I'm not trying to be Instagram famous. I'm not trying to get people's emails or, you know, have a business or anything. It is just kind of like my online journal of like what's going on with me and spirituality, and how I'm just like everything we've just talked about right now is in my blog, just kind of the steps of my awakening, but not awakening to spiritual, you know, 5D consciousness. It's my awakening to, you know, what is really going on in the world and how have I been misled by new age or spirituality, and where I am now. And it's pretty like just raw and like a personal journal almost. And I get so many personal messages from people like, thank you so much. Like, me too. Like, you know, I went to this psychic, or I had this friend who told me this, or I believed in this channeler, and, you know, and they just seemed like they were trying to be a guru and lying. And I knew they were lying, but I didn't tell anybody. So just getting like crazy messages, and I'm just trying to be there for other people going through the same thing. And that's why I'm so happy I met you too, because
Yeah, totally.
spirituality for me is connection. And I get goosebumps when I connect with people.
Yes.
And oh, I just wanted to like quote something from your intro, where you were saying how things that seem superficial can be spiritual. And you mentioned like social media, and I'm like, social media is so spiritual for me because I just get again goosebumps connecting with people and talking to them. So yeah,
See,
that's my spiel.
I think it's so amazing that when you break it down, I believe that people are innately spiritual. And I think that it's so much simpler than what we have these
Yes.
ideas about what it means to be spiritual, and all these books and gurus and influencers telling you how. But then when you really break it down, and like you said, it's connection and you're talking to people. Like,
Yes.
social media can be a great tool to build a community. And when I interviewed somebody who does celebrity gossip for a living, Lainey Gossip, And she said, of course, gossip can be spiritual. It's communication. It's how we reference ourselves. It's how we learn about our culture and our society, and how we view ourselves and celebrities and the stories that we see in the news and in the tabloids. And I think social media can be the same thing. And this is why it's so amazing to meet people like you and have these conversations, because we together rediscover that spirituality is so much simpler and
Yes,
easier than we have made it for ourselves. We can have a
absolutely.
conversation over Zoom, and it can be like this. This to me is enriching my spirit. It's making me feel good and optimistic. And it's giving me hope that I'm not alone, that it's okay to lose your faith. It's okay to question things, and it's okay to be deceived. Like we're all just looking for hope and love, right? And you're not a
Yeah,
bad
you're
person
so
if you
right.
chose to believe. Like, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah, everything you just said, like totally, totally. I'm so happy we met.
Yay. So, okay, to wrap things up, what would you say to somebody? I mean, it might be a little dangerous asking you this, but like, what would you say to somebody who is maybe just picking up, like they see the manifesting book in the bookstore and they're like, oh my God, this is the answer. What would you say to them if you could say anything?
Oh, well, I'm like, that's hard. I would probably just say, like, if you really want it, but like, take it with a grain of salt. Encourage them to be a little skeptical and say, I've read many of those books before, and it's basically 20 years later, and I have not found them to be helpful in my life. So just don't put all your eggs in that basket. And yeah, probably that just people, I probably thought that like people who write books, like know a lot more than me. And now I feel like anyone can write a book.
Oh, hell
So,
yes. Oh my God,
so,
yes.
yeah, like just being careful that that person's not like the expert and be all end
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, be like move forward with caution, and take it with a grain of salt is a great way. And just,
Yeah.
yeah, just beware. Use the internet, people. Oh my God, Google. This is another thing I'm learning about my podcast too, is, people will hear something on my podcast and be like, oh, I Googled that and that's not true, or something a guest will say. And I'm like, this is why this is the good side of having so much information. The bad side is you can be misled in an instant. One afternoon on YouTube, suddenly you're extremist and you've been radicalized in whatever way that you've been radicalized. But the other side of it is, if you are willing to explore it, you can probably find the other side of any situation, and you can balance out your beliefs
Right.
and have a more well-rounded approach to life.
Hopefully you can find the other side, but I do
Yeah,
know
hopefully.
some evil spiritual people who definitely make sure they sue people for any negative reviews or get
Oh,
anything taken
nasty.
down with money. And so there's quite a lot of spiritual people that are rich and doing that. So if you're trying to Google blah, blah, blah is a fraud or blah, blah, blah is bad, you actually might not find anything.
Shit,
So
that's a
it's
good
becoming
point.
extremely dangerous. Most things you will find like a negative review or somebody who's like questioning, and then you can again draw your own conclusions. But the world's getting that's why I'm like everything's evil. The world's getting like kind of nasty, and I do think that's kind of like a spiritual warfare. Like people are, I don't know, trying to take your soul and like lead you down. I think I'm coming up with a new conspiracy here though, but people are trying to trap your soul into this new age spiral that you're
Mhm.
not enlightening yourself in whatever way that means. You're stuck in this, thought pattern of crystals and ayahuasca and blah, 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 spiritual, and you actually won't come out of it enlightened.
Yeah,
Traps you.
because there's always something else you have to do in order to get to the next level. It's
Yeah.
like a video game. Whereas if you just are living your life and every once in a while you do something to enrich your spirit, then you're kind of defining your own spirituality and you can break free of that. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's why like opening up about your experiences and making connection with people you can trust. Like now you and I are taking each other on funny memes that are like, if you don't like this thing, you're not going to manifest money. And I'm like, this is exactly the problem. But you have to find a group of people you can trust so that you can navigate the craziness together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're now my group.
Yes, I'm so happy. Thanks so much for coming on the show. I'm so happy
Oh my
we
God,
finally
thank
did
you.
it.
I love you so much.
I love you too.